think we're looking, in the collaboration space, we're looking at with governmental support for our mission, and continuing to explore and quantify the resources that we have. We've got an extraordinarily large mineral footprint, multi-mineral footprint, and my message in Washington last week was, if you give us access to the capital, we'll show you where you're going to get your next 4 to 5 generations of critical minerals.
All right, welcome back inside our proactive newsroom. And joining me now is Pete O'Hearn. He is the chairman of LibertyStarminerals. And Pete, good to see you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and also joining us is your director, Gerardo King. And Gerardo, good to see you again as well.
Good to see you, Steve, as well.
Yeah, gents, lots to talk about today. First off, Pete, why don't we start with you? Because I know you were recently in Washington talking to congressional leaders about your story and really about the opportunity where they see it with what Liberty Star is all about. So let's start with that too. Tell me about your trip to Washington.
Sure. So, when I went back and looked at my emails. I started off each meeting with that I traced emails back to over 6 years ago when I started bringing up rare earths and critical minerals. And my last email to them over 6 years ago said something effective, China doesn't ever have to expose their citizens to warfare. They can just shut off rare earths. And there's a kind of a famous story where they had a Chinese fishing trawler / spy boat in the Japanese waters, and Japan commandeered the boat and notified China that they had their crew in their boat, and China notified them they were cutting off rare earths, and Japan returned the boat and the crew within 24 hours. That's how powerful rare earths are. And even back then, it was over 90%. And so I started talking to some of the congressional leaders about, this is such a critical issue for us. I mean, if China cut off all rare earths, which they did last Wednesday or Tuesday, it could really do some damage to the United States. So I began talking to them about it 6 years ago, and was able to make the trip and to go, meet them in person and talk about it. And the story had matured during that time and became a real issue when President Trump issued that EO the week before, that we've got to find ways to fund. But they're really kind of focused more on the refining technology of it than the actual identification location of it. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with their funding.
Yeah, and that was sort of the message, was that if you want to get a supply, you have to help companies like yours and able to get to that next level, I would imagine, as well.
Yeah, you can't refine
not the only
it.
company they're talking about funding.
Right, you can't refine it until you find it. And we have one location in the U.S., Mountain Pass, which is MP Minerals. They received about 30+ million in government funding for a magnet manufacturing facility in Fort Worth, which was great. And then there's another company out of Australia, Linus, who received 120 something million for a facility down in Seadrift, Texas, down by Victoria, right on the coast. And again, they're focused on refining. They're focused on the end product of rare earths, but we need to be focused on locating those. And one of my messages to them was, we love Greenland, but the mining season there is very short relative to Arizona, which has a 365-day mining season. So you can't beat our domestic stock.
Yeah, Gerardo, that's a key part of the message that you bring all the time as well, and we've talked about before, is just where the markets are at and how critical these minerals are, and it's starting to show that in the markets as well.
Yeah, that is correct, right? So we are seeing unprecedented prices of copper and gold, right? And aside from rare earths, base metals are critical and a strategic asset as well, right? So that poises us to become more than just a company, but a platform for developing assets across the Americas that has US or American control in it. And like Pete said, you need to find it to develop it. There's some assets out there that can be adhered to our platform. So it becomes more than that, right? Getting funded in the right way with the right team of people. I think this is an opportunity that is far from ending, but just scratching the surface of what starts. The US does not produce a lot of critical assets, so we need to start focusing on how to adhere and get those assets in the portfolio, right? Operators are a great strategy to to move forward. But then this new governmental strategy builds into our ability to poise ourselves as an all-American company that has control of critical and strategic assets for the next 100 years. And if we do the investment today, that's probably when we're going to start seeing some turnover. It's not going to be in 3 years, right? It's going to take 7 or 8. So the moment to start is now. If we take longer, that reversal in our platforms is going to take longer as well. So
yeah. And it's not like the price is going to drop in the next little while, dramatically. It's the scarcity is there, so that obviously affects price moving forward.
That is correct. No, we are seeing investment banks put a price of gold for 2025 of 3,050. We're crossing 3,200. We're crossing the threshold for the projections of 2026. Same with copper, and that adheres to all industrials and precious minerals up, right? So rare earths and strategic minerals, including cobalt, is out for grabs in the Americas. So the Americas is our backyard, and that's where we should be focused, right? Continental US, and then seeing how other pots of minerals can adhere to our platform and create value for us.
Yeah. Pete, last word to you. Let's remind everyone where Liberty Star is at. You mentioned obviously your project. Tell me more about where you're at now and where you see things going in the next 6 months to a year.
Thanks. Gerardo's an important piece to that. He joined our effort, I guess, probably a year ago, with all of his contacts. I think we're looking, in the collaboration space. We're looking at with governmental support for our mission, and continuing to explore and quantify the resources that we have. We've got an extraordinarily large mineral footprint, multi-mineral footprint. And my message in Washington last week was, if you give us access to the capital, we'll show you where you're going to get your next 4 to 5 generations of critical minerals.
Yeah, it's a message I'm sure that was well heard as well. Pete, thank you so much. Great to catch up with you. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Gerardo, is always great to see you as well.
Same, Steve. You guys have a great day.
All right, there's Gerardo King, a director, and Pete O'Hearn. He is the chairman of Liberty Star Minerals.